Hey, welcome. We are back with video number 2 for the form builder. Okay, so last time that we left off, we said we're going to do some state. But first thing I want to do is I just want to kind of clean up this form so it looks a bit nicer in this smaller responsive view. So I think what first thing we need to do is we need to kind of fix up the form groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do this as, and then do that. So the idea is just, cool. Okay, so that works. So the idea is just that we default to a full width, and then we do say that on the medium breakpoint we do the third. So same thing I think we need to do here is full width. Cool. Okay. Now that looks a bit better. Now just for I think the input. So let's just there we go. Let's see. Easy. Cool. So that's sorted. So that looks a little bit better. Okay. Other thing I want to do before we get started, I just kind of want to take out the text input and put it in its own component. So let's do that. So we're going to define an input here. I think what I'll need is a name, a label, a value, and a on change. And then we can say we want to return. Let's say for now we want to return all of that. Okay, cool. And then what we want to do is we just want to do think default that. Okay, cool. And then what we want to do over here is just do say okay. Let's go text input name equals the form input dot name, and then the label equals form input label. Okay, and then we also need to close up. Cool. Okay, so that all seems to be working. Okay, so now I think we actually get to go to the state part. So what I want to do is I want to create kind of a new state object here, which I'll then call something like form state, and then this is just going to be a collection of name value pairs where the name corresponds to the name of the form item, and then the value would be a state. Okay, so let's see. So we can do something like name and then say use state, and then for the state we'll just initialize it to blank, and then again use state, and then line 1. Cool. Okay, so the reason why we're keeping it out of the form one is that we probably end up wanting to create a component saying that form builder or something like that, and then pass this as a param, and then the idea is a form builder off of that needs to create the sort of the state object, if that makes sense, or the state collection. So the idea is that we don't want to put the state in here because that kind of makes the component that we've tried to build at the end a bit harder to use. So what we need to do now is we'll see we've got an on value and on change. So we'll say, okay, value up there. Okay, I spelled that wrong, but we'll fix that in a bit. On change, but we actually want to do probably something like here, this. So we want to say on change. We want to say e.target.value to get the value of what the person was using, and then we just want to fix that. Okay. Okay, cool. So we got the value, we got the on change. So now what we need to do is we need to do the value and on change for the text input. So we'll go here. We'll say that we have a form state. The form state would be the key would be the name of the form input, and then we'll say that the value is then the first item in the array of state, which is kind of how the use state works in React. And now we've got the on change, which is, again, it's the form state, it's the form input.name, but this time it's 1, which corresponds to the setter that we get from use state, which is part of the whole way that use state works within React. Okay, so now we kind of got a text input. Let's see that. Okay, so that looks like something is maybe still working. So now what we need to do is find out if those values are actually in the use state of React, and the way we'll do that is we'll probably end up putting a button down at the bottom by doing something like, let's say, like that, and then we'll say something like button dot, let's see, I think px thing py1 dot bg gray 800 dot text gray 100. Let's see, what do we need? We need probably rounded, something like rounded. We'll need a shadow. We'll need hover. I wonder if this works in Emmet. I haven't actually tried it. Let's see. Well, the hover state part. Okay, so let's see if we could do like a BG gray 600. Let's see what happens if we try to do this. Cool. Okay, we just need to give it some sort of value. So we'll just, in this case, say save. Okay, what we also want to do, or I want to do here, is probably just right align it and then just go justify end. Cool. Okay, so we got our button. So now we want to do is just some sort of function that we can call when we click the button. So we say submit form in this case. So we say okay, and we'll say all we do is just console log the form state. Okay, cool. And then we'll do just on click on the button, form, I think it's submit form. Okay, nope. There we go. Submit. Okay. So wrong spelling. Okay, cool. So let's see what happens if we do like if we do inspect console. We'll fix those errors in a bit. 4, 5, 6, and then just something like that, and then yeah, okay, cool. So we got line 1 is that name, surname. Okay, cool. So that all looks fine. Okay. So what we need to do now is probably just fix up the errors. So this is to do with the fact that we don't have keys. So when you iterate in React over a component, or do this sort of map thing to try and get what do they call it? A TXX or JSX. We need to provide a key. Okay, so in this case, what we're probably going to provide is something like form, and then say E for that part. And then over here, we've got another one that we have to add. So we just say key is, okay, we probably need to add an index here. So we'll say form E index, and then we'll need to do something like that. And then for the key, it's probably going to do something like this. So for the key, we can probably try and just use the name, but just to make it a little bit easier in terms of just kind of following the hierarchy with that we build using the keys, is that we can use the form E, and the E being the short for element. Although I probably need to change that to something a better. Something like form group. So the idea is the form group is the details and the address, and then whatever follows that, and the E being the key. So that's basically a string, and it's either details or address. So we'll say form details maybe, and then index would be 0, and then form details 0, and then the input would be, let's say, name in this case. So that's what we kind of get out of the key there. And if we try to save that, we try to clear console, we should be sorted now with the error. So okay, so that's nothing to do by the looks of it with our application. So cool, we got the keys. Okay, so what we probably want to try and do now is we want to do something with this form state. Because at the moment we're kind of hard coding it, but the idea is we want to be able to pass this form, and then it should be able to generate the form state off of that form. So what we'll do here is we'll go something like object keys form map. Let's call it something proper this time. So this would be a form group, and this would then go to, let's say, const. Okay, let's make a form group key, I think, because then we can call something over here form group equals form, and then say nope, we don't want a form, we want a form. Okay, cool, so we got a form group. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to iterate over the form group as well. Also, we probably don't want to use map, we want to use for each, because the thing is a map returns a value, but we're not looking to return a value, we're just looking to populate this form state. And then the form state originally at the start would be empty. Form doesn't mean forms. Nope. Okay, so let's say we can clear this out. Can also clear that out for now. So there's probably some sort of mistake that we made. So okay, so that's the mistake. There's the mistake. Okay, and then what we want to do is just go back and say, okay, well, we want to do that. And then the idea is what happens is when we, for each of all of these, is then we'll add the items to the form state. Okay, so what we want to do now is go to form group. We want to do for each again. We want to say sub form group. We want to do then, let's see, what do we want to do here? So this is going to be collections of the actual input. So we want to say something like then sub for group dot for each again, and this is going to be the actual input item, and then this is going to be where we get our names from. So we want to then say something like form state input name equals use state, and then do something like that. And then that is, that's going to build our state. So if we do, let's say, the button press at the bottom, we should get the name, line, surname, and then that, if we populated, should give us values. So line 1, yeah, that looks fine. Name 1, yeah, so that looks fine. So cool. So that's how this thing kind of works then. Okay, so in the next video, what we'll probably end up doing is we'll try and get this form part that we've got up here. We'll try and get that out of the component. We'll try to see if we can add some other type of inputs, like maybe a password type input just to start with. We'll try and see if we can build some sort of form input factory that we can pass a type to, and based on the type it kind of generates the correct form input type, like either it's a text or password. And if we really want to reach in that video, we'll try and just do something like a select as well. I'm not quite sure how the select yet is going to work. So there'll probably be two variants. So there'll be a variant where we can pass a fixed list of options, and then another one where it can get the options from a URL, essentially dynamically loaded via Ajax and populated that way. But we'll leave that for another video. So yeah, we got a form now. We can save state, and it's a bit more responsive. So yeah, actually, maybe before we go, maybe we can just look at the responsiveness to see what it looks like. So at the moment, it kind of goes a bit wide. So what we maybe want to do is on the group is just make this on small. So we kind of get this, and then if we really go wide, it looks like, yeah, I kind of like that. So that looks cool. And then we go wide, we go back to this. Okay, so maybe one thing we just want to do over here is have something on the text input that says that text input needs to span to the full width. Let's see what that looks like. It might be that we want to do something over here as well. Okay, cool. So now that spans full width. I don't know if we can maybe now take this one out. I think the Tailwind guys, when they actually do the forms, they don't necessarily do it full width. You can kind of specify the width of what you want. So you can do something like, okay, so we got double width actually. So let's see what that looks. Okay, yeah. So now it kind of looks a bit worse. So let's see, undo that. Okay, cool. And then on this, but yeah, I think I kind of still like it like this, maybe without the width. The reason I think that they give for that is that, or they don't necessarily, let's say, specify full width, is that the length of the input should kind of tell the user what the constraints are of the input. So if you make it this long, you're kind of telling the user that the system expects this many characters of text as part of the input. But for now, what we kind of just do, I think, is we just want to maybe stick with full width. We'll see later on if we can kind of maybe do a styling part to this, like let's say something like meta tag, and then say width, and then you can specify what you want the width to be like. So let's say in this case something like 64, I think, or 50, and then I'll kind of just add that to the class name in React. But for now, I think this looks cool. I like it. And I'll leave you with that. So next time, on to number 3. Bye.